Good morning. Like
Morning.
to call the public hearing for Tuesday, August 9th, 2022. We say that again. I'd like to call the public hearing to order at Tuesday, August 9th, 2022. If we could get a roll call, please.
Mr. Hess?
Present.
Mr. Tholen?
Present.
Ms. Polk?
Present.
Mr. Stites?
Present.
Mr. Searoyd?
Present.
Mr. Lear?
Present.
Ms. Weber? Present. Ms. Peters? Present. Ms. Parker? Mr. Fairfield?
Present.
Mr. Carrico?
Present.
Mr. Eckhoff?
Present.
Mr. Swanson? Mr. Fenneling?
Present.
Mr. Dennell? Mr. Miller?
Present.
Mr. Long?
Present.
Mr. Kirkstrad?
Present.
Mr. Hunter? Ms. Bryan? Mr. Collins? Ms. Hudson?
Present.
Mr. Smith?
Present.
Mr. Alexander Hildebrand?
Present.
Mr. Gowler? Mr. Raymond?
Here.
Ms. Foster?
Present.
Mr. Wheeler?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. So I have to read something into the record, but I did want to note one change on it I found this morning. It's in towards the 3/4 of the way the first paragraph that starts "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen." It said the existing animal control facility, and it's actually a new animal control facility. So when that was drafted, they had existing. We are definitely leaving that behind, far behind. Erase it from our memories, no. But no, I just wanted, so if there's a motion to approve on that, so I can get through reading, I can read this into the record, Mr. Hunter and Mr. Smith. So let me get on that here. That's a formal process. This public hearing is called to order at 9 a.m. It's being held at the 4th floor boardroom at the Administration Building of the County of Kankakee, Illinois. 189 East Court Street, Kankakee, Illinois, regarding a plan to issue not to exceed $1.5 million in aggregate principal amount of the county's general obligation bonds, in parentheses, alternate revenue sources, Series 22, in parentheses, the bonds. Andrew Wheeler, County Board Chair, as hearing officer, am reading the following statement. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This hearing will come to order. Let the record reflect that this is a public hearing being held in pursuant to the requirements of Section 10 and 20 of the Bond Issue Notification Act of the State of Illinois as amended. Notice of this hearing was published on July 20th, 2022 in the Daily Journal, newspaper general circulation in the county. This is a hearing regarding a plan to issue not to exceed $1.5 million in aggregate principal amount of the county's general obligation bonds from an alternate revenue source, Series 2022. The proceeds of the bonds will be issued to finance various capital improvements within the county, including but not limited to building and equipping, in addition, and improvements to a new animal control facility within the county, including, in connection with said work, acquisition of all land or rights in land, mechanical, electrical, and other services necessary, useful, or advisable thereto, and paying certain costs thereof. Second paragraph, the bonds will be issued by the county in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government Debt Reform Act 30 ILCS 350/1 to 350/18 of the State of Illinois as amended, and shall constitute a general obligation of the county payable from fees collected by the county under the Animal Control Act 510 ILCS 5/1 to 535 as amended, and placed into the Animal Control Fund created or continued by the county treasurer for the purpose of paying costs of the animal control program, and ad valorem taxes of the county for which its full faith and credit have been irrevocably pledged, unlimited as to rate or amount. This public hearing is required by sections 10 and 20 of the Bond Issue Notification Act of the State of Illinois as amended. At the time and place set for this public hearing, residents, taxpayers, and other interested persons will be given the opportunity to express their views or against the proposed plan of financing the issuance of the bonds and purpose of the issuance of the bonds. Now, moving on, is there anybody that has the written public comments to submit? I didn't receive any. We did, is there any in-person comments on this matter from the public? And a second time. Alrighty, now board member comments or questions regarding this. Yes, one in the back, Ms. Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to bring to the attention that ad valorem taxes
means that that is an assessed value of an item such as real estate or personal property. So it is your personal property which is guaranteeing this $1.5 million bond that we've been told really isn't gonna cost us anything, but it can and probably will, and so I will be voting no.
Sure. Is there anybody that has a thought on that? Or excuse me, a thought on the bond issuance? Mr. Snipes.
Just want to make sure this process is fair. Now, I know that you published this in the paper when?
I believe it said the 20th.
The 20th. So the people, and then we also had it on our website.
But all legal requirements have been fulfilled.
So the question was, we also had on the website, because someone looked and asked that they could not find it. So I want to make sure that if we're going to do anything as far as bond, I'm not in objection to what we're doing. I'm just making sure the process is such as can be transparent to the people, and that they had a real a real opportunity to know what we're doing and how we're going to proceed in doing it or whatever. And then this, I do agree with Janice, the ad valorem has the tendency to attach the taxpayers' properties to this, even though we have forestated that it will be coming out of animal control. And that, but if something goes south, then the taxpayers will be attached to this, because their full faith and credit is being attached to this via their property tax, which allows us to attach it to a bond as a source. So you stated that everything that needed to be done has been done in that regard. Yes. Is my understanding. Okay. And then the last part of this is the ad valorem taxes. Could they explain that particular process? Because it appears as if individuals are having some concerns with what is an ad valorem tax. We know, but do they know? And there's just a brief narrative so that when they come back to this segment after we're gone, they can review it and they have that information.
Sure. Mr. McCarty and your guest, do you guys want to step up to the microphone to say why that paragraph is in there the way that it is, and maybe the financial dedication that we actually voted on already within the Finance Committee? So yes, it'll be just a moment, because we've been through this process. That's one of the things that we actually have is the video that talks about all of this as well, up there forever. So please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. In regards to the question about the ad valorem tax, that is a backup pledge of the county to make sure that the bonds are paid. So the pledge revenues to pay the bonds are any animal control revenues that are being collected in the animal control fund as a backup pledge to get the best interest rate for the county. There's a property tax. Assuming there are no other revenues available from the county, no revenues from animal control, the backstop is a property tax of the county to repay the debt service. It's kind of the last pledged revenue if there's no other revenues to make that debt service. It makes an investor comfortable to purchase the bonds and in turn get you the best interest rate in the market.
So the only other question is, and this is the concern they had, and this is why I want to put it to sleep. The reason that we don't have to take this to the taxpayers, because if we was to initiate a tax, we would have to send it by referendum and let the people approve it. This is just used as a backup, so therefore it doesn't require us to place anything on the ballot for the taxpayers' approval.
Correct. This is an alternate revenue source bond, so taxpayers have the opportunity to petition the county not to issue the bonds, but it does not go to a general referendum question at during the normal election cycle.
So what is the what was the projected bond payment per year?
That payment's about $110,000 per year.
So of a $30-some million budget. Okay, thank you. Do you have another question, Ms. Peters?
Yes, I do, thank you. So if the $110,000 payment cannot be made completely out of that, it can be pulled from, the balance can be pulled from the general fund, correct?
Yes, correct. Can be paid out of basically the pledge revenues or the animal control fund, or
Correct.
other revenues lawfully available, with the backup, ultimately the final kind of repayment to make sure bonds are paid, being the property tax.
Any other thoughts? Anybody else the first time? Mr. Lear.
Mr. Chairman, as was discussed in Finance Committee, of course, we've gone through all of the various sources that will be a part of the plan that has been developed. And so I think that as one looks at the discussion that takes place in the Finance Committee, you'll see this is very substantially supported. So the likelihood of any need for a backup is extremely small.
Any other questions, comments first time? Ms. Peters, second time? Third?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, third time.
Sorry. Who's got it?
Can it be brought to the taxpayers to be voted on?
I'm sorry?
Can it be brought to the taxpayers to be voted on as a referendum?
I don't, I guess it could be, but the question is why? We have the revenue outside of the taxpayers to cover this.
But again, they are guaranteeing it with their real estate taxes, so. Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Mr. Hunter?
Yeah, let me just say this.
We've had our financial experts to address this, bond personnel. We've had Ms. McCarty. I know that this is one of your pet projects. I think actually that one of the projects of all of us, I would assume. The present facility is in the city of Kankakee, the 7th Ward, and it's in substantial disrepair. This particular process has been very transparent. I don't know how many, I shouldn't say man hours, but how much time has been allocated to address this. All facets that are incorporated in this particular matter that's up for a vote have been discussed, and I'll call for the vote.
Well, I do have to ask if there's anybody else that has a comment for the first time. All right, we'll go second time, and we'll go, anyone else? Mr. Snipes, I definitely don't want to squelch any debate on this. We need to make sure that it's out there.
I think it's important, and I appreciate the call for the vote and the whole 9 yards. But when there's calls that comes forth, even though individuals might have saw it or they may not have saw it in the committee, the finance committee, or even in the committees, whereas this was also brought to the attention of the members that served in respective committees. The issue is, if there's, at the county board level, what concerned them, it wasn't so much, because I explained to them the process of how the monies are going to be utilized, that there's BARC, there's IPTIP funds, and the whole 9 yards. I did that. The concern came up when they saw the word ad valorem taxes. And so in order to put it to kind of, I don't want to say put it to rest, but to at least soothe the chaos or the questions that they had, the ad valorem tax is added as a safeguard and a tool to use to get the lowest interest rate for the county. However, it has been assured that there is ample funds, since when I sat in the meetings, to basically support and to finance this specific project. But if the concerns come up, I think we do have to address it to the people, that there's a process, and that when you see the word ad valorem, yes, it's attached because of the purpose of securing the best interest rate for the county. But the dollars or the revenue source that's actually going to finance should not cost the taxpayers 1 cent. Is there a possibility that something could go south, or we can go one of the Great Depressions or whatever? There could be, but at this point, and I think it's $110,000 that's going to be contributed to this source, looking at the budget, looking at the fees that has already been collected in the IPTIP funds, and the thing is going to kind of offset some of these numbers. But just for the purpose of clarity, we wanted to bring forth the ad valorem tax, as it's not a surprise or some type of, we're gonna come in and make the taxpayers bite this bullet, but it's there as a buffer of support, as far as bargaining is concerned, to get the lowest tax rate is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Just one other important part, before we can even issue the bonds, legal counsel requires that we have a revenue coverage covenant, that the revenues coming in from animal control support at least 125% of what that annual payment is. That needs to be proved up based on the county's audit, and legally that's done. So the revenues are there currently to repay the debt service on the bonds by more than 125%, which I think actually even double that. But legally, we can't even issue the bonds as alternate revenue source bonds unless we have that large covenant.
I can't stress enough that this facility will be built with no local property taxpayer money, zero. Now, we have to have the backup in there in case a satellite falls on the building or something, I don't know, something that has to be there legally to back it up. But there's more than enough money going through animal control now to pay for this. And the only thing that we had to contribute outside of that was non-local taxpayer, property taxpayer money, was ARPA funds because of the price increase, which we hope is going to come down in building materials. We're hoping that's going to come down throughout this year when we start to actually buy those materials. So that's the fluctuating number, but it's still not going to get into the general fund. I hope that makes sense to everybody. So the concern is I understand why there might be those opportunities to voice a concern, and probably should, and people should know that the backup, just like all alternate revenue bonds, is the general fund. But we're not going to get there, and there will be no property tax money of our local taxpayers used in that building, which is, I don't know, really never happens. Yeah, I mean, when can you say that this ever has the possibility of happening except for times like right now? So, any other questions or thoughts? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Mr. Golan? Ms. Holt?
Aye.
Mr. Snipes?
Aye for this.
Mr. Searoyd? Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Mrs. Weber?
Aye.
Ms. Peters?
Nay.
Ms. Parker? Mr. Fairfield?
Aye.
Mr. Carrico?
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff?
Aye.
Mr. Featherling?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstrom?
Aye.
Mr. Hunter?
Aye.
Ms. Hudson? Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Alexander?
Aye.
Mr. Raymond?
Aye.
Ms. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. For the record, who made the motion in the second?
Mr. Hunter and Mr. Smith.
Thank you. Alrighty. Is there a motion to adjourn this part of the meeting? Ms. Peters, second. Mr. Hess. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. We'll take about a 5-minute break. Or whatever we need, we'll come right back with